Someone misunderstood you recently, perhaps even dismissed you, or formed an opinion about who you are based on something partial. And somewhere in you, a familiar pressure began to build. The need to set the record straight, to provide the context, to walk them through the reasoning that would make your position legible, to restore the accurate version of yourself in their mind. You probably acted on it. Most people do. I, Friedrich Nietzsche, want to talk to you about that pressure and why it's best not to react. Let me begin with the mechanism. When someone misreads you and you feel the pull to correct them, what is actually happening in that moment? The surface experience is injustice. The record is wrong and you want to set it right. But if you follow the feeling further, you'll find something underneath the injustice. You find a dependence, the need to be correctly understood by this person in this moment is a need, which means that something in your sense of self is contingent on their having an accurate picture of you. Their misreading threatens something, and the thing it threatens is the stability of your own self-conception, which turns out to be more reliant on external confirmation than you had previously acknowledged. This is what I named with the concept of resentment, though here I want to apply it in a direction that is less often discussed. The reactive person, the person whose interior life is organized around responses to what others do and think and say, is not simply someone with a bad habit of over-explaining. They are someone whose sense of self has been constructed from the outside in. They know who they are primarily through the reflection they receive from others, which means that a distorted reflection is not merely an inconvenience, but a genuine threat to the coherence of their identity. The explanation they rush to offer is not really for the other person's benefit. It is a defensive maneuver, an attempt to restore the mirror to the condition that allows them to recognize themselves in it. The person who does not feel this pull, who can receive a misreading, a dismissal, a mischaracterization, and remain genuinely untroubled by it, is someone whose sense of self does not depend on the mirror. They know what they are from the inside, with a completeness and a stability that makes external confirmation feel beside the point. The misreading simply does not threaten anything that matters because nothing that matters is located in other people's understanding of them. I want to be careful here, because there is a version of this that is simply indifference dressed up as strength. The person who does not defend themselves because they do not care about anything, who has achieved a kind of affectless detachment that has nothing to do with genuine self-possession. That person is not what I am describing. The silence I am pointing toward is the silence of someone who has located their stake somewhere that other people's opinions cannot reach. These are entirely different interior conditions, and they look identical from the outside, which is one of the reasons the genuine article is so rarely recognized for what it is. What I observed in the people who seemed to me most fully themselves was a quality I can only describe as a settled relationship with their own substance. They had done sufficient interior work, had confronted themselves honestly enough, had built something real enough that the question of whether any particular person understood them correctly felt genuinely secondary. The work was real. The understanding of others was a separate matter, interesting perhaps, occasionally useful, but not load-bearing. Their identity did not require the scaffolding of external validation to remain upright. The person who rushes to explain themselves every time they are misread has, in contrast, an identity that is at least partially scaffolded from outside, and every explanation they offer is simultaneously a small revelation of that dependency, a moment in which they show to anyone paying attention exactly where the weight is resting. I wrote in a passage that has been quoted with some frequency and understood with considerably less that silence is the highest form of contempt. I want to unpack what I actually meant by this, because the reading that stops at contempt misses the more important part of what I was pointing at. The contempt I was describing was not the contempt of the person who is too proud to engage, who withholds their response as a power move, or who calculates that silence will wound more effectively than speech. That is a reactive silence. It is still organized around the other person. It is resentment in a quiet register, and it shares with the compulsive explainer the same fundamental structure. An interior life that is oriented outward, that takes its bearings from other people, that cannot fully disengage from the question of how it is being received. The silence I was pointing toward is categorically different in its origin, even when it is indistinguishable in its appearance. It is the silence that arises when a person has so thoroughly inhabited their own perspective, built so completely from the inside out, that the demand to justify themselves to someone who has not done the same work simply does not land as a demand worth meeting. It is the silence of genuine incommensurability, the recognition that the explanation would require the other person to have done work they have not done, and to have developed capacities they do not yet have. The explanation would simply be wasted. There is a passage, "And thus spoke Zarathustra," where Zarathustra descends from his mountain full of wisdom that he has spent years developing, eager to share it with the first man he meets, and the man, a saint living in the forest, receives it with complete incomprehension. Zarathustra continues on his way. He does not attempt to explain, he does not rephrase or simplify, he walks on. And what he walks on with is a clear-eyed recognition that he and this saint were at different points in their development. No drama. This is the model I was holding up. The person who has genuinely overcome does not require the world to catch up to them before they can continue. They continue because to stop and explain yourself at every one of these encounters is to make other people's development a precondition for your own movement. It is to hand them, without being asked, a lever of control over your interior life that they have done nothing to earn. What I want to bring this toward is something that bears on how you actually move through your days and through the specific encounters that constitute a life. The compulsion to react is one of the most effective mechanisms by which other people consume your energy and direct your attention without your conscious consent. Every time you feel the pull to explain yourself and act on it, you have allowed someone else's understanding of you to become the organizing principle of your next hour. You have redirected your energy away from whatever you were building and toward the management of their perception. And you have done this, in most cases, for people whose opinion of you will not materially affect anything that matters, and exchanges that will be forgotten by both parties within days. The discipline of non-reaction is the practice of recognizing this pull, feeling it fully, and declining to act on it through the genuine reorientation of attention toward whatever actually merits it. This requires something that most self-improvement frameworks do not address: a sufficiently developed interior life that the pull toward external validation genuinely competes with something else. The person who has nothing more compelling than other people's opinions to orient themselves around will always, eventually, orient themselves around other people's opinions. The practice of silence and non-reaction is only sustainable as an expression of something real that makes the reactive loop feel, by comparison, like a waste of the only resource that cannot be recovered. I wrote that one must have chaos within oneself to give birth to a dancing star. What I want to add here is that the dancing star requires not only the interior chaos, but the capacity to protect the process of its formation from the constant interruption of people who want you to justify the light you are producing before it has fully arrived. The explanation, offered too early and to the wrong audience, dissipates. The energy that went into the defense of your position is energy that did not go into the development of it. And the position that has been defended endlessly is often, on examination, the position that has been developed least, because the defense became a substitute. The person who has genuinely understood what I was pointing at becomes selective about which encounters merit the expenditure of their interior resources, and they develop the capacity to move through the ones that do not without being pulled into the reactive loop that makes other people's misunderstanding feel like something that requires their immediate attention. Remember that selectivity is not arrogance. It is evidence of having something worth protecting. The question is whether you have built something on the inside that is real enough and stable enough and genuinely enough your own that the misreading of it by someone on the outside does not move you from your center.